Have you ever thought to yourself, man, I wonder what happened in that time I got reincarnated as a slime after the end of Season 2? Well, you're about to find out. The anime only covered volumes 1 through 6, which means there's currently 16 more books that are yet to be animated, so let's dive right into volume 7. Directly after killing the fake Demon Lord Valentine, Laplace returns to the moderate Harley Quinn alliance, immediately reporting that Clayman has been killed. Laplace exclaims that Clayman was weak, followed by Footman angrily punching him. Kazalim, however, orders them to stop fighting, and the black-hair boy tells Laplace to quit pretending to be the bad guy, since this boy is the one that hired them for the job. Laplace then reveals that he killed Demon Lord Valentine, though he admits the new moon and holy ground definitely weakened his vampire foe. Tyr and Footman are eager to stage an assault against Tempest, but Kazalim reveals that Rimuru successfully captured most of their force. After hearing this, the boy declares their best course of action is to lay low, though Kazalim notices that he's definitely scheming something. Now, the anime actually skipped the Walpurgis feast, but nothing noteworthy really happened. Upon returning to Tempest, the citizens take a knee to welcome Rimuru home. FYI, I'm going to use the anime pronunciations when possible, though it's obvious I definitely need to work on them. Diablo and Rigurd are the first to congratulate him on joining the Octagram, followed by Diablo explaining that he bribed Veldora with dessert to keep him updated. Rimuru exclaims that Veldora doesn't even need to eat, but it's pointed out that eating isn't necessary for Rimuru either. Now, Diablo was supposed to be conquering the country of Falmouth, so later that evening Rimuru asks why he abandoned his mission. Shion even makes fun of him until he reveals everything is going perfectly according to his plan. It all began with fixing the prisoners that Shion had tortured and mutilated into living cubes of flesh. You see, on his way to Falmouth, he restored Raheem and Raisin's bodies back to normal. It turns out that while filleting them, Shion used her master chef skill to literally rewrite the laws of nature surrounding their body, meaning that standard healing was unable to fix them. Raisin immediately asks Diablo to restore King Admaris, but this demon's sheer presence forces him into submission. Raheem and the king both volunteer to serve Diablo as well, followed by him revealing that he will restore the king, though not before the nobles of Falmouth witness this atrocity. Diablo's 3 new servants teleport into the castle, which erupts into pure chaos upon seeing the king's current state. They swiftly call in their best healers, but none of them are able to do anything. The nobles ask Shogo to explain, which is then revealed to actually be the sorcerer Raisin, who then says that their army was defeated. The nobles are frantic due to how much money they lost, but the Marquisa Mueller, who Diablo had already contacted, successfully calms everyone down. Raisin then explains that the champion Yom has obtained a cure from the monsters and is on his way here to restore the king. Next, he announces Veldora's revival, sending the room into chaos once again. The Marquis reels everyone back in, allowing Raisin to lie, declaring that Veldora's revival is what wiped out their entire army. Yom's party then enters the room, and the nobles are disgusted to see a commoner stand among them. Raisin declares Yom to be the person that saved them, and that Rimuru is the monster who successfully calmed Veldora. This makes the nobles realize attacking Tempest was a mistake, and they order Yom to take their demands straight to Rimuru. He, however, points out that they're in no position to demand anything, followed by the nobles wanting this filthy commoner removed from their sight. Knowing that Diablo is getting pissed, Raisin urges the nobles to listen, and they eventually agree to engage in peace talks with Tempest. Diablo then seizes this opportunity, introducing himself and approaching the still mutilated king. The royal guards turn to stop him, but are too terrified to dare do anything. Emptying a potion while stealthily casting magic, Diablo restores the king to his proper form. The nobles demand to know more about that potion, so Diablo announces that these full potions are only produced within Tempest. Diablo then reads off the 3 conditions for peace talks. 1. The king must relinquish his throne and pay war reparations. 2. Falmouth surrenders itself to the Jura Tempest Federation. 3. Agree to the previous 2 conditions, or the war will continue. The nobles yell that these demands are ridiculous, followed by Diablo giving them a single week to decide. It's the very next day when the king has a meeting with his closest advisors, and once again explains how their army was decimated. The group then discusses the conditions, and they realize that accepting them will lead to a civil war, but rejecting them will lead to an invasion and death. Then they can all agree the 10k stellar reparation cost is way too high, but the king wishes to accept as it's the only way to protect their citizens. He's also aware that his brother will attempt to take the throne, and that Diablo is actually seeking a civil war. With his thoughts sorted out, King Admaris declares that Falmuth will in fact join the Tempest Federation, as he's seen with his own eyes how peaceful the monsters of Tempest truly are. Rimuru is shocked that Diablo actually showed the cube of flesh to the nobles, and then begins comparing Diablo to Japan's Yakuza. Diablo then reveals that he demanded 1 million gold worth of stellar coins, though he isn't actually expecting to receive that amount. Diablo then states that the king is under the influence of his tempter skill, so he will know right away if the king dares to betray them. Rimuru, however, believes the king's life is in danger. It would be good publicity to have Yom protect the king. But it turns out Diablo was already planning this, so they both agree to send reinforcements Yom's way. Rimuru is concerned that other nations may join in the battle, but Diablo already has countermeasures in place to prevent this. Around this time, Haruna enters the room with the dessert, and Diablo's share goes to Veldora as payment for their previous deal. Rimuru is still curious as to why Diablo returned so soon, which turns out to be Veldora's doing. Rimuru scolds this dragon for interfering with people's work, and winds up revoking his dessert privileges as punishment. Back in Falmuth, all the nobles gather as the king announces his intent to accept all the conditions. The nobles argue the monetary cost is way too high, and exclaim they should just continue the war as they believe the church will come rescue them. Edward, the king's brother, accuses King Admaris of attempting to flee the country and his responsibilities. The king, however, denies this, stating that accepting these conditions is the only way to save their country. Suddenly, a messenger from the Free Guild arrives with a scroll in hand. It's an official announcement naming Rimuru to be a new demon lord, and alerting them to the formation of the octagram. With this, the king exclaims they made a grave mistake, and he then relinquishes his throne, unexpectedly not to his son, but to his brother Edward instead. The Marquis speaks up in favor of this transition, and Edward immediately begins scheming ways around the three conditions. Then a few days later, Falmuth signs a peace treaty with Tempest, as everything is proceeding exactly as Diablo planned. Shuna and Sohei then return, leaving Hakuro and Geld behind to watch over the prisoners. Benimaru also arrives, explaining that his subordinates will do just fine without him. Our Demon Lord finds it amusing how they both dumped their duties onto someone else. They learned it from you. Due to their overwhelming victory, there is a multitude of prisoners, most of which are dangerous Majin. Benimaru, however, states there's no need to worry, as he seemingly already won over their cooperation. He then reveals that the Beastmen are currently on their way here, causing Rimuru to worry about not having enough room for everyone. Though it turns out Benimaru already took that into consideration, so they'll only be housing those who wish to learn, while the rest of them will stay behind to help with the manual labor, such as constructing a brand new palace for Milim. A few days later, Diablo announces that Falmuth signed the peace treaty, and even handed over a massive 1,500 stellar coins. This is way more than expected, and Diablo explains that the king handed over all this money right before he relinquished the throne. They're confident that Yom is more than capable of protecting Admaris, so Rimuru asks them to kill as few people as possible. Now a minor problem has occurred, as the church summoned Archbishop Rahim back to the holy capital. You see, the Luminism faith deems all monsters inherently evil, so they debate whether or not to have Rahim report the truth. After thinking it over, Rimuru decides to send a video message with Rahim, explaining that he really is just seeking peace. Though around this same time, Gabiru arrives, alongside thousands of beastmen, and he hands over a note from Milim, asking Rimuru to teach her servants how to prepare tasty food. Apparently, her worshippers live a life of frugality, so an annoyed Rimuru decides he will in fact help her. It's a full month later when an exhausted Geld finally returns to Tempest, complaining about how difficult it is to teach the new Majin. This sight reminds Rimuru of his previous life as a businessman, so he gladly takes Geld out drinking to let him blow off some steam. Next, Rimuru decides to pay a visit to Hakuro to thank him for all the hard work. Hakuro states that Geld has it much worse, and that they'd have a much easier time if they ruled the prisoners by force. Rimuru, however, points out that forced labor will result in low-quality work, which Geld as an artisan would never allow. Hakuro then reveals that Clayman's territory is home to numerous elf ruins, which are most likely full of untouched loot. Sometime later, everyone gathers in the meeting hall to collectively discuss Rimuru now being a demon lord. Rigurd verifies that Rimuru was given the entire Jura forest, as Benimaru points out that the Dryads don't protect the other side of the river, so the monsters over there are yet to recognize Rimuru as their leader. Kaijin mentions that Rimuru now officially controls all the resources within the forest, so people will need his permission before they take anything. Shuna says they should expect many new visitors, and Rigurd explains that many monsters will come seeking protection. Gabiru even announces that he told Shion his father is coming to visit, though apparently she didn't think it was important enough to relay to Rimuru. With all this new information, our Demon Lord constructs a cunning idea. Tempest can invite all the monsters of Jura to a massive festival. That way he can get all the formalities out of the way at a single time. Everyone excitedly agrees, and they move on to each giving an update on their current task. Rigurd is happy to report that other nations seem unfazed with Rimuru's new Demon Lord status, and that Thalion even wants a road built to them. Sohei has been investigating the route for said road, and found no problems inside the forest. Just outside, however, is an intelligent warmongering species, but Benimaru volunteers to pay them a visit, followed by Shuna accusing him of just wanting to sneak off to see Alvis. After calming them down, Rimuru asks if any dangerous monsters have been sighted recently. You see, due to the high number of Majin living in Tempest, the excess Magicules will naturally create some powerful beasts. Sohei apparently hasn't noticed anything besides a single measly Saber Grizzly. Saber Grizzlies are a rank A- creature. Rimuru exclaims that's a dangerous monster, and Gapta worries that his new recruits may die if they encountered that. Vesta then speaks up, explaining that they recently created a device which is able to maintain certain spells. This was a collective effort between Vesta, Kaijin, Gabiru, Kurobe, and even Shuna. The best part is that it runs off of spare Magicules in the air, meaning it will also reduce the chance for dangerous monsters to spawn. They've even found a way to create a magic crystal from the air, which can be used to fuel these machines when placed outside of Tempest. Rimuru immediately gives Vesta the go-ahead to install magic-producing barrier devices over their roads. Veldora then jumps for joy upon thinking that he can finally unleash his pent-up magic power. However, that would still result in a countless number of deaths. Diablo actually praises Veldora's ability to hold in his magic, and Rimuru promises to think of a way to allow Veldora to safely release it. Geld then speaks up, asking if he may be allowed to visit his homeland, and of course Rimuru doesn't mind, but he does order him to send any potential workers directly to Tempest. Geld states it'd be more productive to put them to work right away, but Rimuru knows he just wants workers who can use thought communication. Rimuru asks what would they do with the prisoners then, and Geld doesn't have an answer for that. Rimuru then hands him a blueprint for a massive project, and Kaijin volunteers to lend him a hand. This ambitious idea causes Geld to worry that he might fail, so Rimuru encourages him by pointing out that failure is just a good way to learn. Diablo then gives his update, revealing that Edmaris is giving Yom a crash course on how to behave like a noble. Rimuru asks how they should react to Edward's schemes, but Diablo states that all they need to do is send Yom more reinforcements. The only problem lies with Rahim, who hasn't returned from his trip to the Holy City. Rimuru asks if he could have been killed, but that's not possible, as Diablo's Tempter skill is still active. This prompts Sohei to state that the city is surrounded by a magic barrier, making it near impossible for a monster to sneak inside. Rimuru isn't too worried since he sent along a mostly friendly message, which only contained a small taunt at the end. Shuna then reminds everyone that there's more than likely a hidden mastermind coordinating all these attempts to destroy Tempest, and Rimuru even debates whether or not Hinata was somehow tricked into confronting him. There's a high probability of multiple masterminds. Diablo actually suggests the same idea, which reminds Rimuru just how crazy intelligent this demon is. Benimaru thinks this may all tie back to Clayman, and Diablo thinks some traveling merchants might have something to do with this. With everyone now on the same page, Rimuru swiftly gives out orders. Shuna and Diablo will look into the merchants. Benimaru and Hakuro will focus on sending Yom reinforcements. Rigurd and Gabiru are to prepare for the festival. Geld will continue with construction as Rigurd focuses on security. Shion will continue being a bodyguard, and Veldora is ordered to just stay out of people's way. Now, Hinata believes the holy city, Ruberius, to be an ideal paradise. Its government is essentially communism, but it works, since the Holy Church is the one controlling it. Hinata recognizes this takes away some of their citizens' freedom, but she deems it justifiable since everyone is happy. It turns out Hinata is one of the few people who are in fact aware that the god Luminous is secretly the vampire demon lord Luminous Valentine. Of course, vampires in this world feed on humans, so Luminous created this utopia as a way to protect her livestock. Plus, it's rumored that happy humans actually taste better. Hinata learned the secret of Luminous Valentine 3 years prior, when she uncovered the Holy Emperor and his brother, the fake Valentine, were both filthy vampires. She attempted to slay them, which resulted in everyone involved lying on the floor mortally wounded. It's then that an unbelievably powerful and beautiful woman entered the room, revealing herself to be the true Demon Lord Valentine. After effortlessly healing everyone, Valentine proclaims Hinata's sense of justice to be foolish, and gives her 1 week to pass a trial if she wants to fight her. This trial is held by 7 legendary men known as the 7 Days. And through this, Hinata became a superhuman. She then challenged the true Demon Lord, got absolutely wrecked, and now works directly under Luminous. Jumping back in time to the night of Walpurgis, Hinata was ordered to guard the city. Lewis informs her that the man she let escape actually killed Roy, the fake Demon Lord. Hinata straight up laughs at how weak he was, but she is concerned with how this may affect the Luminism faith. They move on to discussing Tempest, and it's revealed that something known as angels typically attack a city that develops itself too much. Lewis also believes that the Western nations will likely team up to deal with Tempest, but Hinata questions whether or not Rimuru actually needs to be killed. She suddenly realizes that it was a group of merchants that tricked her into attacking Rimuru, but is interrupted by Valentine's arrival. Luminous explains Walpurgis while being absolutely pissed that she allowed Roy to be killed. Hinata then asks for permission to go slay Veldora, but is told that it'd be impossible for her. It's then revealed that this city was strategically built on a mountain due to Veldora wrecking Luminous's previous castle. Hinata then asks what they will do about the new Demon Lord, and is told not to bother Rimuru. Hinata states this goes against their religion, and then realizes that Rimuru probably wasn't lying when he claimed to be an Otherworlder from Japan. A bit later, we see a meeting being held with the 10 Great Saints, who are each on par with a potential Demon Lord. Their leader arrives late, causing Sayer to openly complain. Hinata is actually willing to give up her position to anyone who can defeat her, but Sayer isn't dumb enough to try. Letus gives her report saying that the Jura forest is extremely peaceful, and that the technology is unexpectedly advanced. Hinata asked about Veldora, but Letus wasn't able to find him. Eventually, it comes time for Sayer to report on the country of Falmuth. He mentions the king has changed and suspects that King Edward may start a civil war. Hinata believes this to be Rimuru's doing, followed by her asking about the merchants in the area. Sayer passes this off to Glinda, who doesn't believe the merchants are up to anything. However, Hinata doesn't trust Glinda. They're all told not to confront Rimuru, as Hinata knows nobody stands a chance against him unless they evolve into a true saint just like her. Grigory doesn't think it's right to allow the Demon Lords to run free. However, Hinata declares that the church's orders are to leave Rimuru alone. Sayer asks if this Demon Lord can really be trusted, and Hinata reveals Rimuru to be an Otherworlder. Renard wonders what she's gonna do since she once attempted to murder the slime, and Hinata proclaims that she wishes to speak with Rimuru. Rahim and Nicholas then enter the room, alongside the men known as the legendary 7 Days Clergy. These guys are supposed to train new heroes, but Hinata hates them, as she believes they only care about themselves. Rahim reveals the full truth about Falmuth's attack of Tempest, causing Hinata to realize that Rimuru is using science from Earth to create new spells. The 7 Days believe themselves superior to the new Demon Lord, as Hinata thinks about Luminous's unfathomable power, and how she's nothing compared to Mila Mergi. The group believes they need to deal with Rimuru before he grows any stronger, but Hinata reminds them Rimuru is seeking peace. Renard exclaims the slime slaughtered all those people, followed by Hinata declaring once again that Luminous has ordered them not to act. The 7 Days suddenly ask if Rahim has a message, prompting him to pull out a crystal ball. A very short video is played, where Rimuru simply says, I'll take you on in a 1 vs 1 duel. Arnaud is ready to lead an assault on Tempest, but Lidas reminds him of Veldora's revival. Hinata finds the timing of the crystal ball and the 7 days to be suspicious. After thinking it over, she announces that she will travel to Tempest alone, but Nicholas exclaims it's too dangerous. Though she's already made up her mind, so the 7 days gift her a special dragon slaying sword, just in case she needs it. Though Hinata knows they're really hoping she kills Rimuru. Hinata wakes up to the smell of coffee, and to Nicholas, who has prepared breakfast for her. He's known to be a stern advisor to the Holy Emperor, but for some reason, he acts like a loving puppy toward Hinata. Nicholas wants to know if there is any way he could prevent her from going, but she just states that fighting may not happen. Hinata then confidently leaves the city, making her way directly toward Tempest. If you enjoyed this video, then subscribe, just before going to watch my other series covering Classroom of the Elite. Then a big thank you to all my lovely patrons.